Hello and welcome to a special Valentine's Day episode of Predictocast, the podcast where we predict what happens in a movie after hearing only the title and maybe looking at the poster and the taglines. Who knows? We're trying some stuff out. I'm Josh, and with me as always is Skinner. Hey, Skinner.
Hey, Josh. Hey, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day. I love you guys. We couldn't stay away. We couldn't. We had to come back.
Yeah, so
it called to us.
So we are taking a break from our break. If you're a regular listener to the show, then you know that at the beginning of 2021, we decided to take a bit of a longer hiatus than normal and drop some Patreon episodes into the main feed and kind of keep things going as we sort of retooled the show. Now, we are not back officially with this episode, but we still wanted to kind of try out some ideas that we have about what the future of the show could be. So this is sort of a test pilot, perhaps, of how the show could go in the future. So if you like this, then feel free to let us know, and maybe this is something we'll do again. But it's almost Valentine's Day, and we wanted to put out something that we thought might be fun. We've been asked to. This has been brought up to us by our friend Felipe Sobrero before this particular movie that we're gonna talk about. And I thought, it's almost Valentine's Day. The title seems perfect for covering during this time of the year, so we might as well give it a shot. And the movie that we are covering on this special Valentine's Day episode of the show is My Demon Lover.
I'm still laughing about you saying we're going to put out for Valentine's Day.
Not intentional, but I'll take it.
I'll take it. Yes, My Demon Lover. We came back for this. We came back from the void from this. Actually, we came back from the dog universe where, hey, if you do miss us doing new stuff, please go on your podcatchers, find Hot Diggity Dog. We are still covering dog movies over there.
Yes, we are. It's so much easier to find us now too. We should be wherever you get podcasts, but if you just want to listen on your computer, hotdogpodcast.com. Really easy to get there, see all the episodes laid out. We've got old stuff, we've got new stuff. It's a good time over there. Please go find it, subscribe, rate and review us. Like we're still pumping out stuff over there. But now we came over here to pump some stuff.
Yeah, we were going to pump us up with this Demon Lover. I love this is a great poster. I love everything about it.
Yes.
But I love that this movie, there's multiple posters, different things, the soundtrack cover, which I would love to buy, not having heard a word of the note of the soundtrack yet. But it always clearly says, and this is what's so good about this, is that it's Scott Valentine is my demon lover.
Yes.
And the way that is laid out in because it's, the heart, he has a demon tail with a heart on it. You think like, oh, the character's name is Scott Valentine from My Demon Lover. No, the actor's name is Scott Valentine.
Well, a perfect enough reason to cover it on around Valentine's Day.
It is. But like, what great synergy that is. And I think that's why I think the only reason why his name is literally part of the title, no matter where you look at this thing up.
Yeah, because let's just be clear. I have never heard of Scott Valentine before.
It's like, he's not a name. No. I'm sure he's done great things, like being a side character on The Family Ties. And
is that true, or are you just guessing?
I had to look it up.
Oh, okay.
I had to. He was the 24th Phantom in Phantom 2040. I don't know what that means.
What is that? Is that the sequel to the Billy Zane Phantom?
Let's find out. Let's find out. Hopefully this is not a thing where we end up having to do it. It's a cartoon.
Oh, okay.
Of that character.
Oh, but it is the Phantom. Okay. Does Billy Zane do a voice in that cartoon?
He's too busy slamming evil in real life. But let's not go down that hole. But he's Nick Moore from Family Ties. I don't remember who that is.
No, I know.
And he's also in a TV short called The Art of Being Nick, which I believe. He was a character named Danny Blaster on Matlock.
Well,
anyway,
so yeah, he's gonna.
he is. But I've never seen a person who's not that famous, whose name is all over the cover of all these movies.
Yeah. So the way that we're going to kind of reformat the show, instead of watching the first 10 minutes and then talking about those, we're just going to kind of like riff on the title, look at the sort of collateral, the poster art, the soundtrack, album covers, the taglines for the movie, and then try to sort of bring up what we think this movie could be about. The general little things that we could come up with. So from the cover, which we can, or the poster art, which we can describe briefly here, it's a man and a woman. The man, I'm assuming, is Scott Valentine with a jacket that looks like a shower curtain.
It kind of looks like a slightly thicker Kevin McDonald from Kids in the Hall.
Okay, I could see that. He's got some impressive 80s hair. Big and kind of mullety. And he's clutching a woman near him who's dressed like someone from the Babysitters Club, I bet.
I mean, she's got a nice pink turtleneck on and a vest.
Yeah.
So it's always great when the love interest looks like someone's aunt, because that's really a good fetish.
She looks like Tina Fey in the Mom Jeans SNL commercial.
She does, but
with blonde hair.
This is played completely straight, I can tell.
Oh yes, this is fashion at the time, and he is clutching her close with his one human hand, but behind her back there's a scary monster claw that's coming around,
which is beautiful because it leads. You know which one of the lovers is the demon because he's got that big old hand,
and his name is above the title.
Well, I mean, Scott Valentine is my demon lover.
That's true. That's unrelated to the movie. It's just a general statement.
I love that if you say it as that sentence, the title of the movie is a statement from her character.
Maybe do you think Scott Valentine is playing himself? Is this some sort of fun meta comedy?
I wish, because I promise you, whatever his character's name is in the movie, if it is not Scott Valentine, which it probably will not be, it's not as good as Scott Valentine.
It'll probably be something very on the nose, like Beelzebub or something.
Mr. D. Val.
Oh man, I would love it if there were, like, at the time that this movie was made, there was some sort of like tabloid rumors about Scott Valentine being involved in the occult. And so he decided to just make a funny, like, reference heavy meta comedy where it turns out, yes, he is some sort of demon.
I wish because when you have the name so prominently put there, like, if it was done today and in today's like almost self-published low budget movie world, like, Scott Valentine would have written, produced, directed, and everything in this movie, right?
Oh, yes.
That's why it's called Scott. But I'm sure I don't think he is in this one. So, like, he would make it to, like, you guys say this. Well, I am the demon lover, and I'm fucking great at it. Like, it's all about how he's this fantastic lay.
Yeah. So he clearly is some sort of demon, but is he always a demon, or does he make some sort of deal with the devil for some reason and then starts to become a demon?
Ah, God, like, it could go either way. Like, it depends on. So what would he be in around? What year is this movie?
I think it's 87.
So he's either an
87.
architect.
Oh, he's an architect.
He's either an architect,
yes.
Or he works at a magazine.
It's like Hunk. It's like Hunk, where he has to make a deal with the devil to get, like, something done for work.
Except for instead of like becoming really handsome, he gets this deal with the devil where he becomes really a great architect, a great magazine editor, a great musician. He becomes really great at something, but when he gets aroused, And unfortunately, he's not very popular. His hand gets really big.
Turns into a monster claw. One thing I failed to mention on the poster, though, is that in addition to the monster claw, he also has a very spiny, sort of hairy tail that's coming out of the back of his jacket. As you already mentioned, it's got a little heart kind of on the end, sort of like a devil tail. But interestingly enough, on the poster, it's looped around above his head, almost like a halo. So I wonder if there's some sort of like he's kind of conflicted. Maybe he's a priest in this movie, and somehow he becomes a demon.
Like this is like that combination is such a great distillation of the "Oh God, you devil"
yes
movie poster. Which, if you are of a certain age, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The second
is like, I wonder if
angel.
Do you think he becomes an angel at the end of the movie?
I mean, that's the only way to overcome a curse where you're a demon lover.
You have to die.
An angel lover. Well, you have to die. Can you die? He's my demon lover. So it has to be, God, it has to be something about, because it has the word lover in it.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's clutching her, his hand is grown very large.
Yes.
And when he clutches himself, his hand grows very large. Is it the obvious thing that when he gets in the mood, when Scott Valentine's,
he turns into a demon when he's aroused or something?
How do you make an entire movie about that?
I don't know. Let me get a little blue here for a second. Does he come hellfire?
Yes.
Okay.
Like when he has to say he's coming so that you can get out of the way.
He orgasms and immediately the smell of sulfur fills the room.
Yeah, like immediately. Or if he has only one love interest, which the poster suggests, the first time that happens, that'd be the end of their romance, right?
You would think so, unless she's just very accepting of weird quirks.
Like it would have to be a doggy style situation, right?
Okay, so I have a thought before we go down that road and to avoid us going down that road. What if
we do the hot dog pod? I just thought I'd bring it up.
So the film, the way it's written, the title on the poster is Scott Valentine is my demon lover. So could the movie be from her perspective, and she meets this guy who she likes, and it turns out he's a demon?
You would hope so because of the syntax of that, but also it's 1986-87.
Yeah,
I don't think she's going to star her.
That's also true, but I'm very confused because we have a couple taglines that we can talk about that we're going to use in this new sort of format that we're trying out, and the big one that's on the poster is "Falling in love can be very scary," which is true, I suppose. But is it? I mean, that's what makes me think that it might be from her perspective, because she's scared of the fact that he's a demon.
I want to know if he's somebody who's, in that case, if he's somebody who is genuinely good but cursed. So like she genuinely wants to be with him, but he just constantly demons out and it's against his will. Or like, is he trying to fool with her? Like, is he a demon in heart? Or is he an all of me with a demon? Like, what do you think here? Is he a split personality? Does he turn into things?
I mean, I think it could be like a Buffy Angel situation where
Buffy Angel.
Yeah, where he's like he's a good person, like he's worked to be a good person, but he still has this demon side of him. That
one of his parents was a demon and he's just kind of half demon.
Maybe that's why he's only half changed on this poster. He's still part human, but he still has a tail and a weird monster hand.
Well, we have to. Okay, speaking of the posters, I said in one of our other episodes that if we did this version of the show, we would cover multiple covers because I like saying covers. We have other ones where, instead of them in front of a blue background with a tail, it's front with him have no tail, and he's in front of a very 80s movie cover, open curtains of the window.
And his face is insane in that poster, in that VHS box.
For some reason, he's more in. It's basically the same pose, except for she's looking at him with kind of a OU face, and he looks insane.
This looks like the
And
cover
that
of like one of the Fear Street books.
It does. It looks very Fear Street. It tells us that this one tells us that it is a monstrously funny romance. That is a lot to live up for. I'm expecting chuckles in this. If I end this, if I come back in part 2, which is going to be the same episode, chuckleless, my God, man, I'm not gonna be happy.
It does say across the cover of that one, starring Scott Valentine of Family Ties. So they were really banking on people knowing this character.
Family Ties was super popular, like almost exclusively because Michael J. Fox was super popular. And you have to remember, he's also Teen Wolf. This guy is Teen Demon.
Oh, Teeman.
But Teeman, there is a clearly European version of this cover that has different font, same picture, same pose of these two, same window. But in that window is a giant fucking puppet face of a white head with yellow eyes, big bat-shaped eyebrows, and pointy teeth. Clearly a demon. It looks fucking comically bad. Is that him?
Maybe that might be him in his demon form, which is that's insane if they have to get together like that.
Like, I mean, I know we keep trying to make the R-rated somebody fucks a puppet movie. We just keep trying to do it, but did they do it so early?
Maybe.
Why does everyone keep coming back to that? Like every 5 years, someone's like, you know what would be funny? A really dirty puppet movie. And it's like, no, the world has spoken again and again.
We don't need it. One thing I do want to bring up, you also shared with me the original motion picture soundtrack artwork.
Which it is available on Amazon. There's only one left in stock. If it's still in stock when this comes out, it's because I haven't bought it yet.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's kind of the similar pose of them on just sort of a light blue backdrop, but different clothing this time. He's wearing what looks like some sort of like velvet robe, like he's in the Playboy Mansion. But I've noticed that he's got a creepy monster ear in this one.
He looks kind of like a hobbit in this one.
He does. He looks like a hobbit or some sort of hobbit. He looks like it's a half hobbit, a hoblet.
Half goblet, half hobbit.
I was going to say goblin, but yeah, it came out as hoblet. So that's a new term that is entered into the predictocast lexicon. A hoblet.
Yes. Music composed by David Newman.
Oh, he's actually a real composer. Like he's done real stuff.
And he also has done this.
Yes. I think David Newman he has done, I'm going to double check on this to make sure. Yeah, he did Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. He did Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. He did Honeymoon in Vegas, The Mighty Ducks, The Sandlot. Like he's done some stuff.
Can I read you some of the reviews of the soundtrack?
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
This one's a 1-star review from 2013. Somebody won it back. If you like just music, that's fine, I guess. 5-star. I have been looking for the soundtrack all my life. Couldn't believe it finally showed up on Amazon. I have a large movie soundtrack collection, and I think it's this time that this one joins it at last. I just can't wait for it to arrive. He's written a 5-star review before he has received it back in 2012. I can remember watching this movie with my mother, and we just loved all of the music. I wish my mother was still here because it would be a blast. I would blast it just so loud for her to hear and enjoy. Thanks, Amazon.
Oh my God.
So,
wow. What a depressing turn that took.
This review is his in memory of his mother. He has left a 5-star review for a soundtrack to a movie decades later that he has not received, but he has ordered.
Well, I think. Do you have any other little quick predictions for this movie before we get into watching it?
They will I hope this is more or less a prediction than a hope. I hope that the whole movie, he can't stop turning into a demon while they try to fuck. That's the whole movie. And in the end, to solve the problem, it will be eventually, this ending will be stolen by a little movie called Shrek. She also turns into a demon.
Oh, I like that idea. I think that's a good idea for the way this movie ends. Is either I'll say either they both become demons or they both become angels or something.
Either one is a good idea.
Or she becomes an angel. She dies tragically in this movie, and he's still a demon, but somehow they make it work.
And how about they don't make it work? She comes back as an angel. He doesn't know. He finally keeps it under control as he keeps it in. But unfortunately, because she's an angel, it burns his dick off.
Yeah, he's evaporated with heaven's flame.
Yes.
But the only way that you're going to find out what actually happens in My Demon Lover is you're going to hang out until after the break, which should be like 5 seconds or so, and we'll be back to talk about the entire film. So hang tight. We'll see you soon.
Josh, I have one question for you.
Yes.
Do you got any Fritos?
So we're back. We have watched My Demon Lover, and we are ready to talk about it on this few days before Valentine's Day. Boy, what a romantic film this is.
I gotta say, and I didn't expect this. I would not have predicted this. Even like after the first 5 minutes, I like this movie more than it shows at the start.
So you're saying you did like the movie?
I liked it more than I thought I would.
I agree. I agree with you. I did not. I expected there to be some stuff in it because, again, as we mentioned before the break, I think Felipe Sobrero was a big proponent of this movie, and we always like what he typically suggests. And he had suggested it a long time ago, and I thought this was a like I said, a good enough reason to bring the show back from hiatus briefly. And yeah, when it started, I was like, I don't really know. And then when it ended, I was like, that was actually kind of fun. It has some problematic stuff in it. But I think overall it's kind of fun, even if it's very stupid.
It's one of those weird things where like it introduces the characters in possibly the worst light possible. Like they're
yes, I hate both of these people at the beginning.
I hate them so much. I hate Kaz so much.
Yeah, Kaz is terrible.
And he kind of always is terrible, but like they just decide like about, I don't know, 1/3 of the way in, they're like, you know what? All that setup, fuck it. These are just two people. These are just two fun people, and we're just gonna go from here. Like, forget what you saw before. That doesn't matter. It has all the kind of 80s, 90s, early 90s kind of tropes that you expect from this, but they're almost comforting because yeah, they're gonna make a health food joke. You know, they're gonna have that date montage you expect. They're gonna have this and that. Okay. And there's scenes that don't make sense, but also like by the end, I'm like, yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, the montages do a lot of heavy lifting in this movie, where it goes from them like barely liking each other to agreeing to just hang out and be friends to like, do you love me? Yes, I love you. And it's like, whoa, that was like 10 minutes.
10 minutes ago, he emerged from garbage and stole her food. And 10 minutes later,
and spit it on her.
Like, could not make the literal worst meet cute in movie history. And then like 10 minutes later.
Let me stop you there. This was not a meat cute. It was a non-meat cute because her burger was a fruit burger and didn't have any meat in it.
Boy, like, oh my God. Let's get started from the start with the shitty drawing title card.
Oh man, I was like, oh man, 80s animated opening. Nope, just one screen. Don't have the money to do the entire thing.
How much of the money was spent on the sound on like the 5 songs they play?
I don't know. I was looking that up to see if it was anyone that I recognized, and it's not really. Like, they have a couple songs from a band called Intimate Strangers.
Oh, what a great name that is. We should have named this podcast Intimate Strangers.
So there's a couple movies called Intimate Strangers, but I looked up this band to see if there was anybody that I recognized in it, because they kind of have a Peter Gabriel-esque sort of sound to them. They're not as good as Peter Gabriel, obviously, but they have that. The lead singer kind of has that similar quality to his voice. But it's a duo from Scotland. They released, I think, one album. Maybe they had a couple, but they have a couple albums. But this one, the one that these songs come from, is called Charm. They were originally called Raise the Dragon, but they changed their name very quickly to Intimate Strangers, which is a much better 80s band name.
So much better name.
And then they have a couple songs from a band called The Shangs, which I don't know too much about.
That sounds like a sex thing.
I'm trying to look to see who they are. There's not a ton of information about them. I'm sure that there's probably some 80s music fan out there going, "How do you not know the Shangs?"
I like every song here, like,
but they're all good. They all fit.
They're all fine. They're all fine. 80s, like, literally, you could. There's nothing distinguishing these 80s songs with a lot of 80s songs that were hits.
Yeah.
Like, you can't say like, oh, they're of a lower quality. They're the exact same quality, like exactly the same, but just they probably, this movie made its money back almost exactly. But like they're fine 80s songs. Like, if you heard this in the radio, you're like, yeah, I probably have heard that song before. You haven't, but you would think you did. We've all the great song to start where it says, like, we've all got cares in our position. We own the painful times when pleasures are hard to buy. What a great line. What does that mean?
There's also a line in that song. The song is called Let Go, and it says, "Let go, let the spirit world inside you protect you." I'm like, okay.
Oh, sure. Why not? I would do that if I could. I can't figure out how to, but if I could, I absolutely would. I want to mention, right, because from the break, it's just seconds for you with our new format that may or may not last, but for us, it's been a week or so. And when I was like, who the fuck is Scott Valentine? He's Nick from Family Ties. Which character is that? Because of how he's pictured on the box art, where he's not scruffy and he's kind of at a side and he's not wearing a big earring, like, it completely threw me. The second it started, I'm like, oh yeah, Nick from Family Ties, Mallory's boyfriend. Yes, of course. I know exactly. Like, if I had seen one screenshot of the actual movie of him walking around with a fucking saxophone, we'll get to the saxophone. I would have known exactly who it was. It just somehow he doesn't look like himself at all on this box art, and I don't even understand how to put it into words.
No, you're right. I think maybe they jazzed him up or something for the poster. Maybe they did some 1980s photoshopping to him, like, to do something to him, because obviously he's very cleaned up in the poster, and for the majority of the movie he just walks around looking dirty.
The majority of the movie he doesn't wear a second shirt until 37 minutes into the movie. Not that I wrote that down, but he looks like a shitbag, which is what Nick from Family Ties looks like, a bag of shit.
And Kaz is kind of like that.
He is. He's so horny. Which is the plot of the movie.
It would make sense.
He's so horny.
Okay, so let's just go through it so we can get to him. So we open with our little animated title screen of this badly drawn little devil character. It says "My Demon Lover," and then we meet our lady lead, Denny.
She's a grand slam.
Kaz doesn't find out about that until the end of the movie. She's walking around the city. She's got her paper bag full of groceries, very much like the opening of Ghostbusters. And she is stopping at various places, getting things. Goes into a party store where there is a terrifying clown doll outside hawking balloons. I was like, man, they're focusing on that clown a lot. Maybe that clown will come back and attack her later. But no, never again. Just there to set the mood. She meets a cute little dog on the street that steals a bag of cookies from her and runs away.
What is with this movie and cookies?
I don't know. And she is, we learn pretty quickly that she is kind of a doormat because she gets back to her place and bumps into a bunch of guys who are basically stealing things from her apartment. And one of the guys happens to be her current boyfriend, Chip. Which I have to tell a little brief story about the name Chip. And this is embarrassing. So prepare yourself.
Okay, I'm shrinking my entire empathy deep inside me so that I don't feel like terrible cringe when you tell this story.
Yeah, this is what this is. It's a thing where you're going to go, oh boy, your opinion of me will drop, I think, several notches after you hear this story, because it's not that bad, but it just makes you feel very sad for me.
Is this worse than the camp finger smell story?
No, it's not that bad.
If you haven't gone through our back catalog and you wonder what the fuck did Skinner just say, just try to find that episode. When
that
you hear it,
that might
you'll
be
know.
That might have been on the now deceased Patreon. So
oh no, I think we brought it up on air a second time on an actual episode though.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so when I was a kid, I was a big fan of the Not Quite Human remakes for Disney Channel, not the original with I think was not Kurt Russell, but wasn't there like an original Not Quite Human about a guy who made a robot son?
I think so. Like,
oh, maybe no, never mind. Yeah. I liked the original. It was from 1987, so same year as this movie. And Alan Thicke made a robot son named Chip. And I liked the Not Quite Human and Still Not Quite Human movies quite a bit. So in class one day when I was, I think in second or third grade, we had a prompt where, and I don't know why this was a prompt because it really doesn't make any sense, and it opens up a lot of existential questions for kids, maybe at an age they're not quite ready to tackle those. But we had a thing where we had to say what we wished our name was, and so I said Chip. And people could not figure out why. And then I painfully started describing this movie that I liked and the robot kid in it who could do all these cool things. And that's why I wished my name was Chip.
I feel bad for you. I want to say that up front. But also, being a parent now and having my own moments like this, there's something incredibly precious about children who like something unironically and have no concept that anyone would judge them on it.
Okay, so I have to thank you for that. I appreciate it. But I have to say, Not Quite Human, which came out in 1987, directed by Stephen Hilliard Stern, the brother of Sandor Stern, the director of Pin.
You know who's also not quite human?
Who's that?
Well, it's our good friend Pin.
and Kaz, I guess, if we want to bring it back to My Demon Lover. So,
boy, the rules of what Kaz is it's very confusing to me.
Yes. So first, though, she bumps into her boyfriend Chip, who is stealing all of her stuff, and she kind of chases them down the street in this van, screaming that, like, you know, our relationship is over now because you can't do this because of what you're doing. And she is talking to her friend Sonia and basically talking about how Chip told her not to have a party. And so he came in and basically trashed all of her things and stole a bunch of her stuff. But she doesn't want him arrested because she's kind of a doormat and she's sort of consumed with love for this guy. And it turns out that she wasn't having a party for him. She was having a party for her own birthday. And he didn't want her to do that, which is like, what? And so it becomes very clear that, unfortunately, Denny is is used to being walked all over by men and just sort of bending over backwards to do whatever they want and not really having her own agency. And she doesn't even, I mean, she doesn't really get that in this movie either. But I mean, she sort of does stand up for herself a little bit, but
a little bit. It's more that like Kaz isn't going to take advantage of her.
Yes. So
Sonia really like kind of lays on calls her a carpet, which is a good way of, I've never heard a doormat person being called a carpet before.
I wrote that in my notes. It was like, oh, Denny's a total doormat. And then the next scene, she's like, you're a carpet. And you're like, oh, okay. The movie knows what she is.
Two things about it. Sonia mentions he trashed your party and stole your underwear. I'm like, wait, when did that happen?
Yeah, Chip just sounds like a psychotic pervert.
And she mentions specifically that he stole her GE clock radio, which I just the idea someone's like, oh no, my General Electric branded thing. I know there's nothing wrong with it as a brand, but at the same time, when I think GE, I think the light bulbs I pay nothing for.
Yeah, I that's always the weird thing to me in like movies if like they have to legally mention the brand name, like they have to get it in there, and it just sounds so stilted.
Did 30 Rock kind of kill GE as far as a brand anyone could take seriously?
Well, I think they had to do it, but they did it in such a way that like they were like, we have to talk about this, but we also have to make fun of it. So they were able to have it both ways, I think. And yeah, I think they did kill it.
But Sonia as a character, it's interesting to me. Gina Gallego plays her. She is a working actress. She's been in 1,000 things. She's almost too good for this role.
I will say that the majority of the rest of the cast is pretty good. It's just that our like two leads are just kind of. I never felt like they really had much chemistry.
It's so hard because they're set up so shittily. We'll show how they introduce Kaz in a second, but they're I guess to give them an arc, they show them so low and so annoying, but at the same time, they never really have that arc other than through these kind of montages. So it never makes up for like that first pitch to the groin that is the introduction to these two characters never gets washed out of your mouth. The groin never gets washed out of your mouth. Sonia though, like she is so they weirdly fit her into so many other characters' scenes. I was always confused. Like, yes, she's Denny's friend, but then she'll also show up here and here and here and here.
Yeah, she's Denny's friend, but she's also dating the police captain, and she has a health food, and she has like a weird store where she sells like mystical trinkets and jewelry. So that's connected to a victim of this murderer that we've got in this movie for some reason.
Yeah, it's like considering the movie clearly takes place in New York City. Like it's way too small world with Sonia kind of being connected to everybody.
Yeah.
And also, the actor playing the police chief or whatever he's supposed to be, his name is Alan Fudge. Great. Maybe the best name I've ever heard.
He's been in tons of stuff too. Like yeah. So I think we're meeting Kaz at this point.
Holy shit. Like all I had to write down was like, he's the worst. Like, holy shit, this introduction to him. Like, are we supposed, I couldn't tell if we were supposed to be charmed or supposed to go like, this is the worst human you've ever seen.
I mean, I definitely did the latter because he comes into a subway car. He looks filthy. He's got a saxophone. And
he has a saxophone. It's very important that he has a saxophone because if you were an active participant in the world that he lives in inside this, he's on a subway. If you are not him, you would hate him so much right here.
Well, I mean, this is definitely a thing that happens in New York City subway cars. It doesn't matter what time, what line. going to happen at some point in your commute. So it's not that unusual, but still, it's just a little over the top here, because he comes in and he's screaming and he's talking about how he comes from Venus and this is their love language. And he starts playing on his saxophone and kind of wandering around saying that he needs some women, and asking for money. And it's like a whole thing. And then we get the idea of the whole demon lover thing, because he comes up to a woman who's reading a book. I think she's reading a Clive Barker novel, right? Books of Blood or something.
I believe so. Just to make sure you know that this is a horror comedy. It's not, but still.
And he looks down her shirt at her cleavage, and then she like licks her lips, and his eyes go red, and he has these like razor sharp teeth, and you're like, all right. Oh. So he's becoming a demon. But then we don't see what happens with that. Like, we just see him kind of react to this and like bare his fangs, and then the subway car stops and people get off, and there's a woman on the platform with a balloon, and then the subway car leaves and the woman is still there and the balloon floats away, and we cut to her face and it's all like hacked up, and we're like, oh, all right. So they're setting us up to believe that Kaz is a murderer, but he clearly is not.
He clearly isn't. And you'll know who is the second they show up on screen. Later we find out it's very hard for him to, I guess, get soft once he gets demoned up from being horny, and he's always horny. So how long did he walk around with the red eyes and sharp teeth here?
Okay, so I mean, we can kind of stop to talk about Kaz's whole thing here, because I don't totally understand if the movie knows or cares how it all works.
Second is always important. When we do a podcast, we're always breaking down the rules of something if a movie has a central gimmick, as a podcast, you have to break down, like, you know, just for entertainment purposes or just because it drives you crazy, like, because we watch a lot of shitty movies. We're not a bad movie podcast.
We might be in the new format. Who knows?
We might be in the new format. Finally, we'll just fucking give up on it. But always sit there and like, hey, here's the central conceit of this movie, and we pretend it has rules, but they don't quite make sense. So as a podcast, you sit down and say, like, let's discuss why these rules don't make sense. It's kind of what you have to do. And I understand beyond that, from an intellectual process, that these movies simply do not care. And the point is that it's supposed to be funny or move the plot along. I understand that. However, this movie does a thing with what his affliction does later that is so uncomprehensibly escalated that I can't. It is several hours since I watched it. I still can't believe it. I am in shock what they do with it.
You'll have to remind me. You'll have to remind me of that when we get there, because I don't know if I know what that moment is for you.
It involves him pulling a head out that is basically Jim Carrey from Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. So Kaz's whole thing is that if he is aroused, he starts to have he basically starts to turn into a demon, but it changes depending on how aroused he is,
or like sometimes sometimes he turns into a very specific demon. Other times he seems to turn into whatever your worst fear would be.
Yeah, that happens one time.
Like, we have to explain. He only turns into a full demon like 5 times at most. One time he just kind of turns into a demon and he has a bad haircut and a gut.
Yeah, I don't know, like, I don't know what the concept is. It's like if he only gets a certain level of horny, like he's only like chubbing it, so then he only becomes like this kind of demon. But then when he like I mean, we have to talk about later, like if he climaxes, is that how he gets wings that allow him to fly? Or like I don't know.
I don't know
what they are trying to say.
It's so like everything should be an allegory to his penis. Like I'm not joking. It really should be. Like but it's not, it doesn't quite work out that way if you put them all together. And I really want to mention we talked about the box art in part 1 because that's kind of our new deal as of the moment. And there's this crazy puppet head behind him. And that isn't in this movie, is it? That's not one of his forms exactly.
I think it is. I think it's maybe the.
Is it the first one in the shadows? It's never.
Yeah,
this,
I think
it's
so.
never this clear as it is in that box art, though.
Yeah, I think it might be. I think it might be the one where he rescues her.
If you were going to,
but why is he horny at that point?
I don't know. If you were going to pick one of his forms, you'd pick the last one for the box art. That's the money one, right? Where he's basically a super demon. Like he's a demon in there, which what your movie's called Demon Lover. Like he's only at the end is he like the demon you would think of as somebody who turns into a demon when horny.
Yeah, I mean, there's one part where he looks like Uncle Fester. Like,
yeah, and like that only happens at one time.
Yeah.
God, it is so weird. We later see him like kind of walking on the streets and he's accosting every woman. And like I'm trying to figure out at this point, like is part of his problem with being turned into a demon when he's aroused that he can't stop being horny? Like it's part of his curse? That's not true at all. What is he doing here? He's grabbing the ass of every strange woman in the street.
Yeah, because like it sort of feels like he knows that this happens,
and he tries to avoid it later.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like it seems like he's trying to keep himself from like getting horny later with her because he's afraid of what happens. But it doesn't. When we first meet him, it doesn't seem like that's on his mind at all.
Like he later admits he's never had really a relationship at all, and because he's worried about this. And like I could see if he was trying to do it as a front to impress somebody or something, or like we learn later that's when he fully turns into a demon, he himself goes somewhere, kind of blacks out, and then the demon takes over, which isn't also consistent at all.
No,
but like so I thought maybe like is this like his demon side coming through? Why is he like I said? It's the worst introduction to him. He's literally just walking down the street. This guy who's in theory a panhandler. He is homeless. He has no money. He doesn't even have $20. He hasn't eaten forever long, but he's literally going to every woman he sees and is groping them in the street. And then what he does with our lead character at the start when they meet, it's like, holy shit, if you take it at what the rules are later, he's just a dick.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they thought this was the way to introduce our male lead and be like, oh yeah, he's the perfect guy for this other woman who's already been potentially emotionally abused by her boyfriend.
Because when I say he becomes better, and the movie becomes passably likable later until the flashback of how this all happened, which is super creepy, and I don't know why they picked that and the ages of the characters. Like he's a different person after he saves her from Chip. Like he's a different character whatsoever. He's not the cast. Like he's written completely different.
Yeah, it's very strange. So, he's doing this whole thing, and he sees this guy on the street who is hawking these elixirs to cure whatever ails you. And so he goes up to the guy.
Arnold Johnson as the fixer.
Yeah, and it's very funny that you mentioned "Oh God, You Devil" in the first part, because this actor also appears in "Oh God, You Devil,"
which is, along with Angel, Schoolgirl by Day, Hooker by Night, is the two most important video store rental movies of all time.
But yeah, so he goes up to him and is like, "Oh, maybe you can help me." And the guy immediately, pushes him away, and he's basically like, "You have no luck. It can't be changed. You are cursed, my man." And he's like, "But do you have $20?" And he's like, "No." And he's like, "All right, well, sorry."
I want to mention to you. So he was in a lot of things. He's fine in this, other than it's a stereotypical role by a lot. But like, he was on several episodes of Hill Street Blues between 1982 and 1987. I want to tell you the names of his characters in each of those episodes. This is
Arnold Johnson.
Arnold Johnson.
Yes. Okay.
Starting in 1982, he played Drunk, Tubbs, Wino, Drunk, Wino, and then finally in 1987, he played Bum. Which, fuck you, Hollywood. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, he does fit the sort of magical black person role in this, where he has all the answers and he can do kind of things and try to help the white character get better.
He does a lot of reaction shots late in the movie, which are supposed to be funny, and then spoiler, the demon goes in him.
Yeah. So maybe that is what it is. Maybe the demon is what's controlling Kaz and pushing him to be horny because it wants to come out. So maybe it's doing the thing of making Kaz be over the top and grab women because the demon wants to be out to mess around. That would make sense. Annoying.
That would make sense. I wish they had made it clearer because he is so unlikable. Meanwhile, we go back to Denny and Sonia, who are at a bar, and we're going to be introduced to another character. But in this part, they kind of do the backstory of Denny, where Sonia's kind of telling her you're a doormat. You men walk all over you, and she's like, "Well, I just like men. I want to have a caring relationship where I take care of a man, the man takes care of me." And Sonia's like, "You can't just be friends with a guy." And then she goes, "Have you ever tried to have a conversation with a guy?" And I quote, "Especially when the Flintstones are on." And I'm trying to put myself into 1987, where that
the Flintstones have been off the air for 20 years.
They had to pick a cartoon that they shared a studio with. It could, if this was 2004, you could say, especially when South Park is on, maybe.
Yeah, or just say when football is on.
Or when you would, this is where generically you would say sports, right?
Yeah.
You would say sports. Or if you were a really pointed show, you were trying to be edgy, you would say, especially when pornography was on, as if you were watching pornography with your guy friend. But yeah, the
Simpsons went off the air. The Simpsons went off the air in 1966. I don't know if we had gotten into syndication yet at that point. I don't know when Cartoon Network started, but in 1987.
The Flintstone Kids, the Flintstone Vitamins were around, the Pebbles commercials, but God, they were just you were kind of in the 80s. Watch a lot of old cartoons, like how the Looney Tunes were on all the time. So the Looney Tunes were always super important to our generation because they were just on all the time. And kids these days, I know Space Jam 2 is coming out, but my daughter's generation, she's never seen a Bugs Bunny cartoon. It will just never.
Space Jam 2 is for the people who liked Space Jam 1 when they were children. Yes, this is not for people today.
No, this is for the generation of kids / adults who wore big, puffy WB store coats and sweaters.
Space Jam 2 is for the people who had T-shirts with Taz with sagging jeans on it.
That guy had so much attitude that he never showed in any of the actual shorts he was on. Which were only a few anyways, or in the show Tasmania, which had a very good Bing Crosby impression character that the kids love Bing Crosby references. But yeah, especially when the Flintstones were on, that stunned me for a while. I just kind of tried to wrap my head around that someone wrote that line. But then we get to see she's talking about how Denny attracts losers and people take advantage of her. Even dogs. She rescued a dog. It left her later in the week. It was even the dog was using her. And then we see a loser across the way. Sonia tries to make sure she doesn't make eye contact with him, but unfortunately he does. He comes over and he says bonsoir and good evening. He basically tips his fedora to them. This is Charles. This is clearly the bad guy in the movie.
Yeah, this is Chucky.
Yeah, Chucky. This is clearly the character who is killing everybody.
Yeah, he tries to get a date with Sonia, and she's not interested. He tries to get a date with Denny. She's a little more open to it, but he's also very disgusting. He kind of blows his nose and is just a real like nerd. And it's actually pretty prescient of a movie from 1987 to look at this character and go, oh yes, of course he would have a weird thing about women and would probably kill them. Like this is exactly what type of guy exists these days.
Like they make fun of him for being a nerd, but also like the way they write him in his dialogue, they are really they kind of get that thing that a lot of movies didn't get, but it's the reality of the 2000s of the guy who says he's the nice guy and is successful, but is actually a piece of shit to women.
Yeah. I mean, it's he's clearly there's something up with him.
He's clearly taken the red pill or whatever the fuck he said.
Yeah, because that's why he wears that red jacket. The movie tries to screw with you a little bit here, because when we meet Kaz, he pretty much wears this kind of maroonish red like sport coat for the entire movie
until 37 minutes in when he finally has a second shirt, which, like I said, yes, I may have written down.
But he wears this throughout, and later that evening we see Denny going home, and she almost gets grabbed by someone. But she gets ghoulies. Yeah, but she gets inside first, and there's a woman on the street walking her dog who gets grabbed by someone in a red jacket instead. And so we're supposed to think, okay, Kaz must be killing people because clearly he's some sort of weird monster because he's got red eyes and sharp teeth. He might have killed that woman in the subway, and now he's apparently killing another woman on the street. We find out that this is the next in a long series of murders, because we see the press talking to the cops, and they say something about him wearing a costume, which is interesting. I didn't understand where they were going with that,
which is weird because spoiler, when Chuck is revealed as the killer, which is played a lot for comedy considering, and no one really cares that much about multiple murders. It's still kind of played for comedy for most of the time. We see him as the abductor in his castle. He doesn't turn into a demon, which I assume is what they mean by costume, until really far into the whole situation. So like, I don't think when he grabs Denny later, like he doesn't turn to a monster and then steals her. He's just going as himself for most of the time.
Yeah. And he puts on a monster glove.
Which why?
I don't know. It's so weird.
Is he trying to frame Kaz? Because he doesn't know if Kaz is a monster. He doesn't even know who Kaz is.
No,
at this point, the movie is kind of hiding itself as even though it's called My Demon Lover, so you would know, it's kind of hiding itself as a werewolf movie.
Kind of, yeah, because we do, like later on when Sonia's sister is attacked, it sounds like a werewolf attack.
Yeah, like the pointed teeth, like it's kind of adult wolf. He just doesn't play basketball or football.
The press is talking to the police chief and is saying, all these things that like he's been killing women and burning their bodies, which I was like, wow, that's pretty graphic.
It's it's really graphic, and yet like the police chief doesn't super care. I do like that one of the reporters, in a very 80s way of kind of blowing off a serious problem in America at the time, goes, "Is he some sort of coke weirdo?" Like, like crack cocaine was a major street problem, and you guys just blew it off like just these coke weirdos.
Well, I think it's kind of funny too, because they start the press is like, they're calling him the Mangler, and the police captain chief, whatever he is, Phil, he's like, no, don't do that, because now we're going to have a bunch of Mangler copycats. And I think it's really funny that they're pointing that out, because I just finished watching both these true crime documentaries, Night Stalker and The Ripper, both on Netflix. Both pretty good because they're short. They're like 4 episodes. They're both all less than an hour, so it's like a pretty, quick thing to get through. But they both sort of talk about how the press labeled those killers and talked about how that was what grabbed people's attention, because it was an interesting name. Like the Night Stalker one, they go through all the different names they had for him that they were using, and none of them quite stuck until one particular newspaper started calling him the Night Stalker, and everybody was like, "That's it. That's the marketable name that we can use to sell papers." And the
Just
same
like
thing,
Sleepy Joe and Hillary Clinton.
And that was the same thing in the Ripper one as well, because they were like, well, this guy's killing sex workers, and what's the most notorious killing that we have in the UK? Well, obviously Jack the Ripper, so we're going to just start calling him the Ripper. And they're like, okay, cool. And then they just use that to cover him. And then the killer himself starts adapting that name and signing letters called Jack the Ripper. So it was like, oh yeah, of course, they just roll right into it.
It's almost like sensationalizing things that are serious causes more problems. I would I would love to hear the true crime podcast that would come out 20 years after this about the Marauder,
the Mangler.
The Mangler, whatever the fuck it's called, the Mangler. Like in this universe, the 2000s happened. Podcasts eventually happened. Everyone's older now, but looking back at the Marauder, they did catch him. But they can't really.
Him the Marauder.
They can't really. They can't really do a super press release about this guy who exploded into Ghostbuster lights. So it's probably left as like an open-ended thing.
I'm so glad that you mentioned Ghostbuster lights, because that's exactly what I wrote down in my notes. It looks like Zool blowing up at the end.
There's no way this was not intentional. But like in this world, like by 2010, someone does a true crime podcast about the Mangler, and like, because it's never solved in the press. It just went away because they couldn't do a story on it. And they're trying to put together like, oh, we had this person go to the castle and found like ashes of TNT, and how do they cover this? Like, how do they cover Kaz? How do they cover everything?
That would be a great. That would be a really fun experiment. I mean, I'm not saying we should do it, but if somebody wants to, we'll be involved. We'll be voices on it. We'll play characters.
Yes, I'll play Chip,
who I guess is murdered. I don't really know what happens to him. He just kind of goes away from the story.
He gets scared by Demon Kaz and just goes away for the rest of the movie after he was going to assault and kill our main character.
So this is when I think this is around the point where Denny and Kaz finally meet for the first time. We do get, because this movie was produced by Robert Shea, who produced Nightmare on Elm Street and a bunch of other stuff at New Line Cinema, we get his sister, Lynn Shea, in a brief cameo as the woman working at this health food store. And she is screaming at someone on the phone. They list her on the IMDb credits as anemic counter girl, which
Why is she called that?
I guess is a joke about the fact that they're not eating meat.
Oh, but like, I mean, I thought that the joke on that was the guy who passes out at the counter.
Well, that is also a joke. Larry Bud Melman from David Letterman, better known as Calvert DeForest, which I did not even know his real name. He is sitting there. He gets served a bunch of gray goop from this machine called the Health-O-Matic, and she drops a stalk of celery in there. He gives it to him. He eats a couple bites and then dies and falls face first into it.
Health food is so disgusting. And that was once again, like sushi jokes, you had to put them in the movies of this time. And I thought, okay, they've got it out of their way. Nope, there's even more. It just keeps going.
Yeah, so Denny is outside eating, and Kaz wakes up in a pile of garbage nearby. And
he literally rises from a pile of garbage in front of this outdoor dining. She's safe. Outdoor dining, very good, I guess. If you have to dine anywhere, she at least is doing it outside. But like, there's this trash heap, and out of the great trash heap rises the great pumpkin, or / in this case, the great Kaz, as he just wakes up from this trash and then goes, food and a girl.
Yeah, he starts to steal her food. He steals her burger, and he's like, "You're not going to eat this, right?" And then starts chowing down on it, and immediately realizes there's a problem. It's not a meat burger, so he spits out this burger all over her.
It's a poached beet burger with gorse berries.
Yes, and he's screaming and calling it a fruit burger, and then he proceeds to follow her, which is, I feel like, is kind of used as comedy here, but in real life would be terrifying if a man came out of the garbage, grabbed your food, ate it, and then spit it on you, and when you tried to get away from him, he followed you. That would be terrifying.
Like, he literally, because, like outdoor dining, like, it sometimes has that, metal barricade between the real world and your dining on the inside outside. And he's leaning over and bugging her about her food, and then grabs it and starts eating it and then spits it on her. Like, he's in her personal space, this guy who came out of the trash. And then she tries to leave, and he follows her all the way to her house.
Yeah, and he's like grabbing at her and saying, he's like, sexual attraction is a hell of a thing, and like tries to pick her up and stuff. And you're just like, what the fuck? This is not how you have your characters meet. And she's trying to get away from him, and then his voice starts to change, and he screams like, "I told you I had problems," and then he runs off.
It's so shitty. Like, luckily they do a reset, but like, it is unsalvageable at this point. He is the worst guy in history. Like, this is very peak, like, wear her down 80s romance, where like we're just told like, this guy's attractive, so it's fine, because it is fucking gross. It is so bad.
Yes, and it's so terrible.
He's like, I'll pay for your burger, and she's like, it costs $39.95, which fucking in 1987 money, good lord, like, it's a $90 burger.
Oh,
like,
yeah, bring out that calculator, buddy.
Let me get that my inflation calculator. But holy shit, like, just constantly with the fucking health food. How many times have we watched a movie now from this period where there's a health food joke? It's just kind of, it just keeps going.
That was the thing. That was the thing at the time. I'm curious. Like, I watch like, obviously contemporary movies that come out, right now, but I don't think I watch movies like this that would make those kinds of jokes or references. So I'm trying to wonder what they would be. Like, I'm curious what is going to be like our reference that is there that people look back on in 20 years and are like, ugh, they had to make that joke at this point in time. Like, I'm wondering what it's going to be. Is it going to be like CrossFit? Is it going to be like vegan, or is that what it's going to be,
sure,
or is it
I'm
like?
sure we're gonna have all kinds of like mask jokes because like you're gonna make it way into movies soon.
Oh
and
yeah,
then
because
we're gonna-
COVID-19 is the fourth character in the Sex and the City reboot because they don't need Samantha, so now it's COVID-19.
Man, I was really looking forward to that. So by the way, it's $92 in today's money, which is insanity.
Okay, I've been to New York in the last couple of years. I've eaten at relatively decent places, and they were pricey, but I did not pay $92 for a burger. And also, this health food store doesn't look all that nice. It just looks like a diner. So when they called it a health food store, I was like, what are they talking about?
I mean, it's entirely filmed and shot at a actual diner with a stereotypical diner waitress behind there, but except for she's serving $92 beet burgers, which like it doesn't know what it wants to do. Like there's so many places want to make a joke about something that is funny at the time. Like we all hate sushi, we all hate health food. It's so disgusting, but they don't understand the actual trappings of it, you know? So they just they place it in this incongruous place.
How much did that gray goop that he died in cost?
Well, probably not as much as his funeral, but hopefully not pretty close to it. But so like here we have, so they had the world's worst meetup. Like you could not have written this worse. But thankfully we're introduced right back to a character who's worse than Kaz, and that's Chip, who is upset because apparently Sonia must have called the police on him for stealing her GE clock radio, but he blames Denny, and he's going to, I could not tell if he was going to just beat her up, which is gross, or he was going to sexually assault her, or both.
Yeah, the threat of violence is there regardless, and it's like, Jesus, like, and it's so weird because
this is a comedy.
This is a comedy, supposedly.
It has not been funny for a second yet.
Not yet. No, there's a couple lines that give me some chuckles a little bit later on, and then it gets very gross for one scene. But yeah, never really strikes me as like funny, haha. But yeah, there's like this weird threat of violence, and it makes me question like, you know, we know that Denny kind of is a bit of a doormat and then like sort of rolls over for guys, but like, how did she meet Chip in the first place? Because Chip just seems like just some generic like 80s movie thug who wears a leather jacket and steals shit and sells stolen goods. Like, how did she meet this guy?
It comes off that she was robbed and decided to call the person in her house robbing it her boyfriend.
Oh, is that what it was?
No, like I don't think it was, but it's the only thing that can make like the way he treats her. It's like she was like a criminal act was put upon her, and she decided like, oh, by the way, I know the name of the criminal who's assaulting me and all things. So I've decided that this guy is my boyfriend.
It's so bizarre, but yeah, he's threatening some sort of violence on her, but he doesn't get any chance to do anything because Kaz comes up in this very shitty looking mask with like he's got like weird dark hair with a bald spot on the back, and I didn't understand what that sort of demon was supposed to be, and I didn't understand why he was horny. Was he still horny from grabbing her earlier in the day?
Maybe he came across a few like women, homeless people in his area, his garbage dump, and like he's got a halfie going on, or he just like found a Sears catalog and looked in the laundry, because there's no reason for him to, because it's never once said that if his emotions get out of hand, he turns, or like if he's angry or anything else that he turns into a monster. It's only when he's horny. It is only when he is horny. So he has to be horny here. Yeah. So he's watching Chip attack this girl who he has almost assaulted himself, who he has thrown up on, and he has a very slight boner because all it's done is he's got a shitty haircut now and a deeper voice.
Yeah, he's like, there's some trash in New York, or he's something like that. And I've
never seen eating garbage before.
He pushes Chip away and Chip runs off, and then we never see Chip again. I guess he was scared enough that he never returned.
I guess so. I mean, like later Kaz gets back some of the stuff that Chip stole and sold to a fence back. Like he gets her literal TV back.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering if they were going to bring Chip back at the end, like make him either make him the killer, the Mangler, or
the Marauder.
Like have him or the Marauder. Yes, there's a rival serial killer. But if they were going to bring him back in some way and like have him try to get back with Denny or try to break in again to steal something and have Kaz like run him off again, like do something, but they just kind of like he runs off. This is very 80s bully like things going on here where it's like you punch your bully once in school and he'll never bother you again. It's like you chase this guy off one time and he'll never come back, and it's like, oh, okay, well, cool, I guess.
Cool, considering like he knows where she lives and is very willing to attack her in like near like very well lit area. Like like he does not care because no one cares about anything. No one cares about this Mangler killer. Well, it's like it's very similar to the ambulance in that like a massive amount of people are dying and the police chief barely cares. It's very similar to 2020.
Yeah. So he takes her inside and she wakes up and finds regular Kaz there. And she's grateful to him for saving her. So
thanks, homeless man who came out of the trash and spat on me.
Yeah, so sleep on my couch tonight. And
this is where like it really got to me, where he has to make these horny faces constantly, like the actor Scott Valentine.
Yes.
So like every time he's looking at Denny from a distance, he's got to like raise his eyebrow and like widen his eyes. Like, God, he just can't not do this for like a few minutes. Calm the fuck down.
So that night she kind of goes to bed and she goes into her room and he can kind of see her silhouette, and she, is taking her clothes off to go to sleep, and he sort of gets turned on and aroused and kind of turns into like this wolfman like monster, and he jumps out the window because he is afraid of what's going on. So then the next morning we find out, there's been another Mangler attack. We hear it on the radio. Someone's been mangled. It's the sister of Sonia.
Because Sonia is involved with everything in the city.
Yes. And so she makes, because Kaz is back, and she makes him breakfast, and then they decide to, like, he says he can't, because does she bring up here that she wants to have sex with him? Or does he say I can't do it? And I don't know why he would bring that up if
he apropos of nothing says, like it was a drunken night of passion, says, did we do anything last night? And she's like, no. And he's like, good, because I can't. I can't have sex with anyone. Like she's never she didn't bring it up to him at all. Like as far as like, do you like, she apologizes to him. She does not apologize, say like, to make it up to you for saving me. How about I give you a blowy or something? Which was what they would call it back then. He just like, I can't be overnight. I can't do this. Like, he's like, I can't have sex with you. I'm a liar. Or I was saying I had 100 successful relationships in the past. I don't remember him saying that, but he must have it during one of his lines of pickup dialogue. And he's like, I've never had a relationship. I'm no good with this stuff. And I'm like, wow, they had to put this part in to have him apologize for the shitty character he's been, and the shitty character he's not going to be the rest of the way, mostly. Yeah. But also, this conversation is so inorganic that I had to rewind it twice to figure out
about how it came up, because I was like,
I rewound it twice. I like, where did this come from? And I'm like, oh, it just came out of nowhere. Because I don't know. It just, and then they decide that they're going to be friends and go on like this kind of, they go out on a date, this jungle gym date.
It's a date. It's a montage of them doing dumb shit around the city. It's a date.
But they act like they're just like, we're going to be friends. And then they go on the world's perfect date.
Yeah, it
So
looks
that's
great. They're having
weird.
ice cream. They're hanging out. It's a good time.
Balloons, jungle gyms, dancing around. They're wearing 80s clothes. She's wearing such baggy clothes, and so is he. Then he runs into the fixer again. And then the worst scene in the movie happens.
Okay. So around here also like Sonia's with her sister and she has a vision of her being attacked by some wild animal. We didn't mention earlier that Sonia somehow has like psychic abilities when she can know what things are coming and see visions, which is
We also
never
didn't mention
explained.
because she's in part of every storyline, like when the police chief escapes all the newspaper people hounding him, he goes into his office, which they have to stop apparently when he crosses that threshold. She's just in there, and she's apparently she has a physical but non-emotional relationship with the police chief, and she's dropping off giant cartoon handcuffs to him. She's just there to be part of every storyline, and it's ridiculous, but yet not as ridiculous as the ending is going to be.
No. So, which the ending, by the way, this movie's 88 minutes. The ending is a solid third of this film.
It is. It gets there quick after this. Once you said, like, once the montages do a lot of the heavy lifting of the plot, they can get right to the ending.
Yeah. So we get to the scene that you were talking about with the street fixer. And he goes up to him and he's like, hey, I don't want to do anything with you. You got a curse. I can't help you. And Kaz is like, well, I've actually fallen in love and I want to fix what's going on with me. So then he opens up his little stand that he has, and he turns this partial door that he has on the side of his thing, and it comes down, and there's a crystal doorknob on it. And he says, "What's this?" And he goes, "Well, crystal balls are expensive, so I use this," which I thought was kind of clever. And they look into the past, and they see Kaz as a child, and there's a girl there who seems slightly older than him, but they both are very young. They're both like probably 12 or 13 maybe.
Yeah, this is not high school kids. This is clearly at best middle school kids.
And they're like, she's asking if he's ever had a girlfriend or had any kisses or anything like that. So then they start kissing, and then this Romanian woman comes in and sees them kissing and then shoots force lightning at his junk and basically puts a curse on him.
There was no real need for the origin of his curse to be anything sexualizing people this young.
No, of course not.
Absolutely not. And it is done so casually that I'm like, it was just a moment of like, what the fuck was wrong with everybody in 1987? I was mad at the whole entire society about it.
Well, but that implies that he has had this curse on him since he was probably 12 or 13.
And he also forgot that the girl's mom shot force lightning at him.
I guess, I don't understand how he forgot that, because the fixer has him, and I'm calling him the fixer because he doesn't have a fucking name. He's just called Fixer. He tells him this is where I kind of got a bit of a joke. It's a hack joke, or a bit of a laugh. It's a hack joke, but I still thought it was funny, which is he tells him to open his pants so he can see where the mark is, and there's like a mark kind of around his waist area, and he's looking in really close to it, and we cut to a shot behind Kaz where we can see Fixer leaning in looking at the mark, but it looks like he's looking at Kaz's dick, and there are people walking up, and you hear the Fixer say, "And that's where the devil went in." And they kind of pause, and he goes, "Can't you see I'm busy? Go away."
It's right about the spot.
It's hack, but I liked it.
I like that it's kind of at that spot where in like a 1990s Cinemax movie, where if the main character kissed a woman, she would go crazy because they couldn't have their head go down lower than that. If you just kiss a girl's belly button in the 1990s, they went nuts apparently.
And he tells Kaz that he's not possessed, he's possessed, which they use a lot throughout this movie.
Yeah, whatever. Like they wanted to make some kind of weird like difference in what's wrong with him, but they don't. The rules don't make any sense. So who cares? Why come with a different word?
So he lays out basically the whole gist of what the rest of the movie is going to be. He says he can't have sex without becoming a demon, and if he gets stabbed with some object with flint in it in the mark, he and the demon will both die, but he has to do something noble in order to get the demon to leave him. But when the devil or demon leaves his body, it'll grab on to the person closest to him. And that means he's cured, but they're cursed. So he's worried that like, oh, I'm very close to Denny now, and I don't want to do anything that might hurt her. So I have to figure out how to handle this in such a way that I don't give her this curse, but also can still be with her. And so that's kind of how they sort of act through the rest of the movie. So and throughout here we have some more scenes of like the nerd guy Chucky calling Denny over the payphone, and he's like wanting to take her out, and I was like, oh yeah, he's probably the demon, he's probably a killer, and he's talking about he has tickets to like some ballet or production or something. There's something about Sylvester Stallone doing Shakespeare or something.
Very funny. You just say Sly doing anything that's not an action movie, and it's instant comedy.
What light through yonder window breaks? So Denny comes home. Oh, this is my other line. Again, very hack joke, but I still thought it was funny that she's walking by and there is a guy sitting on the steps, swilling from a bottle, and he kind of drunkenly says, "Oh, you remind me of my wife." And she smiles and walks by, and he goes, "That bitch."
Very lock horns at that moment.
Again, hack. Very cheesy, very dumb. Still made me laugh.
I like at this point in the movie, they go back, and we still have quite a bit left of the movie, unfortunately, for how long the runtime of this podcast is. But
well, we can get through this quick. I mean,
the ending is, like I said, a third of the movie, and yet not that much happens. They are at a point where she now wants to be intimate. She decides she loves him, and she's DTF, right? And he's like, no, I can't do this. And they goes into a cold shower to calm himself down. She goes in there with him, which probably doesn't help. And he says, like, I'm just going to tell you the plot of the movie. Let you in. And she's like, don't lose your pizza, which is a great 1987 phrase for puking. And I thought, like, okay, in a lot of movies, they would stretch this out for a long time for not knowing his actual problem. He just would keep transforming off camera from
not
her.
Like regular guys. I have something different inside me.
Yes. But he tells her and explains it, and then they make out, and he starts to transform. So she knows what's going on, and then she tries to lure him into the shower again like he's a dog, which I thought was funny because at the start of the movie, he seems like just a horny dog. Like he's not written as a human. And they have a like she tries to figure out if she can overcome this. Like she now knows exactly what's wrong with him. There's no question. He sits there and he looks like a guy with a pot belly. And he's bald. Which is not what he looks like any other time. But he's like, I can't just change back right quick. It doesn't always work. I had to cool down a little bit more than that. And she's just trying to figure out the rules of it, which will never make sense. But she's like, okay, this is what's wrong. And then she kind of does a little walk around the town, trying to think it over, and if she can live without him or live with it. And she sees another man wearing his patent shirt with long hair. It turns around. It's a different, uglier homeless man than Kaz. What I think is so funny because it's like someone who actually lives in the street would look like as opposed to like her fantastical, handsome homeless man that she has actually found. But then she decides
it's like
that
the guy she finds on the street is the it's the Wish version of Kaz.
yes,
She ordered a Kaz and this is from Wish, and this is what she got.
can you wait 2 weeks for this, Kaz? Only $1. It sounds so good. Plays all your PlayStation games. And she thinks it over and she decides that she can work with it. And he's like, no, like I'm a monster. She's like, no, it's fine. Well, I love you. And then he's like, and then he brings up the other part of the plot, which would take a long time. Usually he's like, I think I'm the Mangler.
Yeah.
And he's like, I keep like every time I black out into the demon, which apparently is more often than they've shown, someone gets killed. And then he just looks at him and goes, no, you're not. Like there's never a moment in our main protagonist character's mind that he is the man. She's like, no, you're not. And he's not. She's right.
Yeah. So
but she has no moments of like he brings up the plot of the movie and like, okay, I think I'm transforming at night and I might be the Mangler. She's like, lol, no, you're not. And I'm like, oh, that was quick.
And this is around this time too. I think Sonia has decided that she knows who the Mangler is. She believes it's the devil, and she has told Phil this, and he's kind of like, okay, that doesn't make any sense, but all right. So at the bar where Denny and Kaz are drinking, and he's talking about potentially turning himself in because he thinks he's the Mangler. Also, Sonia's there, and so is Chucky. Great, good. All of our characters are available. And so they all end up sitting together and they're kind of chatting. And Kaz, who up to this point has been very sweet with Denny and like seems to really care about her, immediately focuses in on Sonia and like notices her boobs and like immediately starts to get horny and turn into a demon right there at the table.
Yeah, isn't that really I thought that's really inappropriate to do with your true love's best friend. Little did I know how far they were going to go with this.
Yeah, so he has red eyes and he has teeth and he's like, hey, let me get you a drink. And then so she immediately goes, well, this is the Mangler. Of course, I think it's the devil. This guy's got some crazy fucking eyes and teeth. Definitely is the Mangler. So she goes back to her shop and she, with Chucky in tow, and gets a demon slaying sword that she just happens to have on the wall of her shop.
We should rename Sonia as the Plot.
Yes, Sonia makes things happen. Like it would be easy to say, oh, she should be our main character, but she can't be because she's far too interesting for this movie.
She is like she just shows up in every scene that's not the two main characters and just moves things along. And like I kind of appreciate that about her because it's funny in that 1980s way of like, here's this other non-blonde side character who's the friend of the main character who has an accent, so she's clearly has all this witchcraft and Eastern European or whatever is supposed to be like knowledge of voodoo or whatever. But she does move things along, and it's weird that they concentrated it all on one character.
Yeah. So they go to head back to Denny's place because she thinks, oh, this is, Kaz is the Mangler. I've got to kill him. So back at Denny's, they're making out. He starts to change, and he turns into a different demon this time. And she tries to keep things going, but everything starts kind of rattling and stuff starts flying around like the place is haunted and things are exploding. And he says that he thinks the demon is taking over. And this is the wildest scene in the entire movie. And I wish that there were more scenes like this because it really does amp up like how weird it would be to be in this situation.
It is so weird. Okay, like you have to put yourself in a position where this doormat character is now so horny for Kaz that she's willing to overcome him turning into a regular demon. And you're like, okay, that's impressive. But then like they changed the rules of what he is so hard here. And it is so crazy that like this, the level of special effects is completely different.
Yeah.
And this is one of like, this is up there with the werewolf showing up in Turkey Shoot as far as I did not see this coming, because he starts freaking out. He's like, just like the room's going crazy. He's now shaking and he's just kind of banging himself around, kind of like fighting it. And he bangs his head into the wall and then he turns around and now he has no head. His head has gone into his own neck. He's a headless monster. And then he grabs into the hole of his shirt where his head should be. And he pulls out a different head, but not a demon head. It is basically, like I said earlier, it is basically Jim Carrey from Dumb and Dumber's head.
Yes,
to the point where I thought
it's like a caricature of Jim Carrey from Dumb and Dumber.
To the point where like I was trying to figure out, was this a popular comedian at the time that we're supposed to know who this is? Because he then starts giving out catchphrases. He goes, got any more Fritos? Hey, what's on the tube? I'm like, what is this character? Who the fuck is this? What is going on? And then she goes, oh no, it's the date that wouldn't leave. And now you realize, oh, he's turning into things that annoy her. It's so weird that he does this, but then it gets weirder.
The actor who played that character, he's listed in the credits as Charles Monster, and the actor who played that character is Pee Wee Piemonte.
It seems like a reference to something, especially when he says, got any more Fritos? Like he's someone from a Fritos commercial. It was so weird. And I'm like, okay, he's apparently a reflection of what annoys her. Like, is she seeing things? And then he turns into basically her aunt.
Is it her aunt or her mom?
Her aunt or mom, like a older woman relation to her, who is now yelling at her why isn't she married? Is she too good for marriage, or like she's getting too old? Just basically berating her as like for being a spinster or something.
Yeah, like, she's just hassling her about like not having her life together yet, and what does she think she's doing? And this is the most insane thing in the world. This causes Denny to kind of start to go crazy a little bit herself, and she's kind of like screaming, and she runs into the room and she's like, I'm going crazy. And then she just puts her hands through this woman's head, and it just like turns into a rotten pumpkin full of runny oatmeal, and it just smashes and just drips everywhere. It is disgusting, and I needed more of it.
It is such a turn. Like, this is something that would happen in like an actual horror movie. Like, she grabs the head and it pops like a pimple.
It is the head explosion from Deadly Friend, the Wes Craven movie where I think Christy Swanson throws a basketball through Anne Ramsey's head.
It just like the head explodes into pus and it's hollow on the inside, and then he's laying there. It's Scott Valentine in a old lady's dress over his other costume with no head.
Yeah,
laying on the floor. And it's like, where, like, I was sitting there, just my jaw was on the floor because nothing in this movie was anywhere close to this. It is such an amp up of like, okay, the whole plot is she can't have sex with him because if he's horny, he'll turn into basically a werewolf, right? But then they're like, no, that's like, she apparently is okay with that and would have sex with the werewolf. Fine. So they're like, okay, instead of just that, he loses all consciousness and turns into a reflection of her worst fears, or at least biggest annoyances. And so, and not only that, physically turns into them. If she fights back against it, she could crush them and turn them into pus. It's like
Yeah.
it's such an amp up of like, there's no way she can overcome this. It is beyond like it's just not him with an aggressive, deep voice and a gross body. He now is like the devil in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
So then Kaz comes back and they both just have like burnt cartoon smudges on their faces.
And she's still trying to figure out how to overcome this.
So Sonia and Chucky arrive outside Denny's place, and it's hard to believe that this is kind of the start of the end of the movie.
It is though, but this is
so
where
weird.
Like, it should be more like that's where all this craziness. What we were supposed to take away from this, according to the dialogue, was she's like, "See, you're not the Mangler because you did all that and you blacked out, but you didn't hurt me." He was really annoying, and she squashed his head, which popped like a pimple, but he didn't hurt her. Thus, he isn't the Mangler.
Yeah.
That was what that scene was about.
Case closed. So Sonia calls Denny from a payphone, and she tells her that she needs to come over right away because she needs her help. So Denny is going to leave her place so Sonia can go in and kill Kaz, who she thinks is the Mangler. And she tells Chucky to go to the police station and tell Phil that she's found the Mangler and he's there. And if you weren't already certain that Chucky was the actual Mangler, they have put him in a red jacket, and when he turns away, he stops and turns back to her and gives her a sinister look, and you're like, oh, of course, this is the Mangler. So Denny leaves, and Sonia climbs up the fire escape to her apartment, and while she's doing that, Chucky approaches Denny and tries to get her to come with him. And then he is wearing a weird demon glove that he grabs her with and kind of knocks her out with some chloroform or whatever and tries to take her away. And Kaz, like, I don't know if he is just incapable of not getting turned on or if it's like just part of having the demon. Like, it doesn't matter what woman he sees. Like he's going to get turned on by her because he's immediately turned on when Sonia comes in the apartment.
I wish they really explained it more because it comes off as a character flaw because he's never otherwise influenced by the demon when he's not demoned out.
Is it? I wonder if it's trying to say that because he is not immediately turned on by Denny, because when he meets her, they kind of have this weird interaction, and he's not immediately turned on by her, but then like he learns to know her as a person, as not just like a physical thing. But that's not really true either. So I don't know if they were. She
doesn't have a very full chest. That's all it is.
But yeah,
beautiful he turns Michelle Little, beautiful woman. He should not act like this. Kaz is an asshole, but I took it as that because he's constantly looking at everybody else's cleavage, and she does not have a lot of cleavage.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. Like, because Sonia comes in and she's like, "Oh, I was looking for you," and then he immediately turns into a demon. Like he's like immediately turned on, and this is the one that is kind of, I guess, his real demon look, because he's got some horns. He's got wings, like little tiny wings, and like there is like she immediately tries to kill him, but they kind of struggle back and forth. He gets outside and sees Chucky kidnapping Denny, and they both jump down from the fire escape and end up on the top of Chucky's car as he proceeds to drive around the city with these two people clinging to the top of the car. It's kind of a wild scene.
It is very wild. Hamburger from another movie we watched with a while back would find this, like, this is kind of thing that would happen in his movie, in his New York City. But This is like one of those moments of like crazy stuff happens in New York and nobody bats an eye. And like that's been not true for a long time. People do notice this shit.
They speed around the city, and when we see that Fixer has been arrested by the police, but they are there when the car drives by, so they give chase. And it's a whole thing. Like the police are trying to get them to pull over, and the police end up spinning out, and they call in backup. And why
does the Fixer say he's a half a woman right at this point?
I don't know what that was. I wasn't even sure if I was going to bring it up or not, but I don't know if he's just calling her a manly cop. Or I don't know. Because that's the same woman that he goes after later when he is possessed.
It's true.
So I don't know. I don't know what that line was about. It was I don't know if it was just like the typical sort of 80s thing of not emasculating but masculating a woman as to make them seem less feminine or something. I don't know, but I think that's probably what it was. And so, Chucky ends up driving into Central Park and crashing the car into a lake. And Sonia and Kaz keep trying to fight while Chucky carries Denny away. And eventually she does stab Kaz, but it doesn't kill him. So she realizes he's not actually a real demon, which that would not be what I would think. I would think that my knife is not actually magic.
I would assume my knife is not actually magic. And also, magic or not, knives can kill people.
Yeah, but like if she stabs him, she's already seen him turn into a demon. So she knows that there's something wrong with him. But like stabbing him with this magic knife means that he's not actually a demon. Like it's a bunch of bullshit.
I guess like there's a demon inside of him. But also, he is a demon.
Yes,
he has a demon inside of him. Like, so I guess the idea is that Chucky or Charles, whatever you want to call him, is a full-on demon, and
I guess
Kaz is only. I
have questions about Chucky's thing because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
They take forever to have him change.
Yeah, they turn finally to see where Chucky might have taken Denny and are faced with a giant castle in the middle of this lake in Central Park.
Which we're not New Yorkers. We've looked at that there is a castle in Central Park, but it only kind of looks like this. Also, like it's this moment of like, what the fuck? Like he's in a castle in New York, and like they never thought to look there because like when you go in there, like. The castle in New York is a tourist thing, right?
Yes. It looks like it,
yeah. He lives in there. He has a lab with chemicals and bombs. Like, there's a castle in Central Park that he lives in and does all his scheming and crimes out of, and no one ever goes in there. What? Yeah. Why would you have him in? Like, why have the climax of this movie take place in a castle in New York?
I don't know. I like it though.
It's funny, but I had a moment of what? Why is there a castle there? Why does he have a laboratory in the castle?
I don't know, man.
He clearly lives in this castle.
It's very funny because he shows her all around his work table and like, oh, I made some TNT and I have all these chemicals. And it's like, but we later learn that you're a demon. So why do you have bombs and shit?
Like if they had just decided like if he was a demon, that like the castle, like maybe the castle, like you know how the gargoyles, Jonathan Frakes character like brought the castle from the old world and reconstructed, stone by stone above the cloud. So yeah. the gargoyles, blah blah blah. Like just like he came with the castle. They imported to New York. Park. There's nothing about that. He just lives in a castle in New York, and he happens to be a demon.
Yeah. So
and there's no backstory given at all as to what he is and why he is.
Yeah, I have some ideas or theories or questions, I guess, about that. So that everybody gets to the castle, the cops show up and they say the Mangler's in there, and so everybody kind of heads over across the water to this castle.
All 7 cops that came after them.
Yeah, there's a bunch of cops. The fixer goes with them. Everybody's over there, and Sonia knows that Kaz can save Denny. She knows he can because she saw him. She saw him with wings. She knows he could fly up there and get the drop on him, but she knows that he has to change first. And so he starts explaining like, oh no, I can't, I gotta kind of get charged up and,
He's
she's
got
like,
performance anxiety.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, sex, is that all you're talking about? Well, why didn't you say so? And then they just start making out and rolling around in the ground.
And everyone just staring at them do it.
Okay. So that's my question. Like, it never appears that she gets naked or he gets naked. So I don't think they actually have sex. I think she just dry humps him into turning into a demon.
I think so. I mean, the other characters react like they're having sex. She's moaning. She like all the sounds are from her side. Like she is being pleasured.
Yeah. So I
she's
don't
enjoying
know what is happening. Like
the Wikipedia article on it, because there is a Wikipedia article of the plot synopsis, does say that he does have sex with her.
That's so weird. That is so strange that that's the direction they choose to go with this.
Even if it's just she dry humps him or he dry humps her or dry humping happens, the idea that this guy who was after his true love, who avoids all his stuff and sexuality because he becomes a monster or whatever, he finally embraces it by fucking her best friend.
Yeah, just take that out of the context of this weird sort of horror comedy kind of thing with like demon elements and supernatural stuff, and just think about putting that within a regular romantic comedy where our two leads, the lady gets into some sort of precarious situation, and the only way that she can be saved is if the male lead has sex with her best friend.
Like Sex in the City isn't going to end with like Samantha's, she finally has her boyfriend saved by him it's finally saved by her boyfriend having sex with Samantha, with Carrie or whatever. Like it doesn't make it, like nothing makes sense. And like in theory, if they were going to go, good, this is true love between Kaz and Denny, and we know it is, right? Because it's a beautiful thing. They have so much chemistry. She's willing to fuck him as a monster. But apparently so is her best friend. They're going to be hanging out afterwards, and she has to know, like, oh, by the way, you got so horny you turned into a monster every time you saw me, and I had sex with you first before you and Denny did anything.
Yeah, I think their friendship is over at that point. Like, I mean, it's a weird thing.
It's weird in that, like, she clearly was super into it as well.
Yes, because there's that point where she's on top of him and she's like, let me see your hands. And he puts these big demon hands up around her breasts, and she like grabs them and puts them on her face. And it's like, oh, she's into this too.
And later she tries to power him back up, and she makes more faces out of it that don't appear to be acted. And mind you, this is all in front of her friend with benefits, but who she doesn't, Captain Phil.
Yeah.
Like,
and he seems to want more of it. He wants more out of their relationship than just the sex.
And instead he has to sit there and watch her make out with a monster. And the fixer is super into it.
Yeah. So Kaz eventually he fully changes, and I guess we have to assume that he does have sex because he smokes a cigarette. But he fully changes into this demon with wings, and he flies up to the castle, and he gets there, and of course, they have to have the funny joke of him and Denny immediately starting fighting because she saw him rolling around with Sonia. And at the same time, Chucky is trying to light some TNT to throw down at the cops. We have a sharpshooter arrive, but he's incompetent. Like immediately, it seems like all the cops are incompetent, I guess.
I mean, it's a comedy and also real life.
Chucky finally does light the TNT, but he gets kind of shot at, and Kaz is able to catch the TNT. And the sharpshooter sees Kaz and immediately goes, "Oh, there's a Pozotsky up there!" Like he immediately knows what it is.
New York, baby.
And so Kaz grabs the TNT and he throws it for the water, but overshoots it by quite a bit, says ACAB, and blows up all the cop cars.
And thus all the budget they could have used on an animated opening was used up right there.
Yeah, for sure. They blow up those cop cars pretty good. Sonia ends up dropping the knife, and the fixer picks it up. Then we have this big chase where Chucky kind of carries off Denny. Kaz follows. All the cops kind of rush in after them, and they all end up on the roof. And this is when Chucky starts to use some of his demon powers. He has like super breath that he uses to blow Kaz back. And then says, and so this is what I'm trying to figure out what Chucky is. He says Kaz is disobeying him. And then he proceeds to blow his cheeks up really big and kind of explode into a demon.
I'm trying to figure out if he's the literal devil.
Is he the devil? Because he has force lightning powers.
He's also wasting his time. Like the devil doesn't need a stick of dynamite.
No,
he's
the devil doesn't need
Coyote.
He doesn't need dynamite, and he wouldn't be out there just randomly murdering people.
I mean, he would, but
but not like this.
Job.
Yes, he would be damning scores of people, not just murdering one random person.
They want him to be ineffectually comedic, like when he's walking around with Denny in his castle. Mind you, once again, he's in a castle in New York. He's still played for comedy, yet this is a character who has murdered multiple women.
Yes.
Which I really, it's always weird to me in these comedies and stuff we watch, or action movies that have some comedy elements, like The Ambulance, or just like straight up comedies like this, where a character is a multi-murderer and they play them still for laughs.
Yeah.
And I'm like he's a nerd. Like, he's also killed people. And apparently he's also the fucking devil.
So he has like force lightning that he shoots at Kaz, and Kaz starts to turn back into a human. Denny and Sonia do try to keep him horny, though, by saying various things like leather G-strings and what else does she say? She says something about like a leather G-string. She says
something wet.
Yeah, she says something about something wet. Sonia's like, I'm not wearing panties, and like doing all this stuff to keep him horny, but it doesn't quite work. He turns back into a human.
Would he know that or not after like dry humping her or whatever he did?
I don't know. Who knows?
What did she yell? Remember what we just did.
So he ends up trying to fight Chucky Demon as a human. Doesn't quite go very well, and
it's a joke in your town.
The fixer throws Kaz the knife, and he says to find the scar. So that implies that Chucky was a person who got turned into a demon, because he also has a scar. So he's not the devil.
What did he do when he was in middle school to a young girl?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we're not supposed to know, but like it is a little weird. Did he also get cursed by some Romanian grandma, or is there something else? Because I don't get what he's supposed to be.
Imagine like there's this whole rash of like Eastern European moms who can literally turn any boy they don't like around their daughter into devils for the rest of their lives. And in this case, created one who murdered a bunch of women.
Yeah. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But anyway, he gets stabbed, and he throws Kaz and starts getting electrocuted, and he has all this weird goopy blood that flows out and then explodes, as we said, into some Ghostbusters cartoon fire.
It's exactly what it is. But it's also extremely nostalgic for me, so I was happy to see it.
No, it was great. It was a great effect. And, Denny asks if Kaz is okay, and there's a flash of light, and now he's wearing a tuxedo shirt and has better hair.
What happened? I rewound this twice and like, why is he in a tuxedo now? But like, not a good tuxedo, like a shitty tuxedo.
Yeah, it's just terrible. It's like a pink tuxedo shirt and a shitty jacket that no pants, different pants, not a tuxedo pants, but and he has slightly better hair. And
this is what he would look like if he had never been cursed all the time.
I guess. And he tells her that the curse seems to be lifted. And he's worried about her though. He's like, I'm afraid because he said, the fixer said whoever was closest to me would get the curse. And they kiss and she doesn't have it. She says it's fine. And
I like that he's so confident that if he kisses her in front of everyone after this traumatic thing she went through, that she would be horny enough to turn into a monster.
Yeah. I mean, he thinks a lot of himself, I guess. But it turns out she doesn't have it. And it turns out that's because it was based on proximity. When they meant whoever was closest to you, they meant whoever was right next to you. And that turns out that was the fixer. So the fixer has now become a demon. And he is looking at the policewoman and pulls his hat off, in which some cartoon horns shoot out of his head. And what does he say to her? He says something about let's go riding, baby, or something like that. And then he chases her off, and it's just like, oh my God.
See, he had horns because now he's horny.
And Denny and Kaz go home, and they finally have sex with each other. And
good for them.
Things are great. And then we get the best kind of movie ending where we see multiple shots of the characters before their name comes up on screen telling us who they are. Like it's a sitcom opening.
What would we do, baby, without us? Is how this ends. God. What an odd movie. I can see why I showed my wife, I was like, hey, we're covering this movie. She's like, I remember that from the video store. I'm like, that box art. And I'm like, you would, wouldn't you, if you saw it at any time?
Yeah.
But otherwise, this is forgotten to time. And
I think that's probably accurate.
Yeah, but at the same time, man, a lot of this movie is forgettable, but man, the stuff that isn't is really not forgettable. But I can't imagine. This is there's certain movies have theatrical releases, but I can't imagine seeing this in a theater.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it must have come out in a theater, right? Because it was a New Line Cinema movie. It was in the 80s when they were doing pretty well.
Wikipedia has a box office. It made $4 million. It cost $3.9 million, all on those cop cars exploding. It is likable despite itself, I guess. It really doesn't want to. And it really doesn't want you to have any scrutiny on it, or the characters, or the plot, or the motivations, or anything. But they don't make them like this anymore. This movie, nothing like this is coming to theaters near you. Nothing is coming to theaters near you right now. But even if there were, even in an alternate 2021 where theaters were bustling and bursting with movies, none of them are this movie. Nothing. You wouldn't do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird one, but it's kind of a fun little oddity that they just, I mean, it's silly to say they don't make them like this anymore, but they really don't. They would have, if they made something like this today, it would have more skill involved and there would be more thought put into how it all worked. But I was telling you,
it would also drag it down. It would drag it down for too long, honestly.
I think you're probably right. But as I was saying to you, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Rockula in a way, this weird sort of horror comedy that doesn't really know what's going on. And even at the when we covered Rockula way back in the first year of the show, there's some stuff in that doesn't make any sense, and like it's unclear why things are happening sometimes, and you just kind of roll with it. And that's sort of the same kind of vibe I got from this.
There's a certain time frame around this point where they knew people liked monster movies, and they knew people liked horny comedies, and they decided like, let's make a few of these that combine both of these, but is neither the R is not R-rated as either a comedy or a horror movie. And it ends up like trying like, oh, it's actually about the romance, but the romance is so comedically bad because of the other elements that like it just becomes this weird mess. And but because it's such a weird mess, it's really hard to look away because you're just constantly going like, wait, what the fuck are you doing that for?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I enjoyed watching this for the most part. I think it's just one of those weird things that if you have a fondness for this era of filmmaking, like it's totally worth a watch because it's so silly. But yeah, I'm glad that we broke our little self-imposed hiatus to come back for a special Valentine's Day treat for those who stay subscribed.
Yeah, this most special one of all the Valentines, Scott Valentine.
Exactly. But I think that's probably going to do it for this special bonus holiday episode of predictocast. Who knows? We'll be back hopefully again to do maybe another little one of these while we test out some new format changes and some new possibilities for what the show is going to be going forward. We hope that you're enjoying the bonus episodes that we're dropping. If you were not a Patreon subscriber, you're getting to hear some stuff that you haven't heard before. So we hope that you're enjoying that. And just remind you to check out our podcast, Hot Diggity Dog. You can find that on your podcatcher of choice or at hotdogpodcast.com. We're still putting stuff out over there as well. So if you haven't heard any of those, please go check that out. Give us a rating there. Give us a rating here. And if you like the show, tell your friends.
It's a season of love. Why not show some love for us? We put a lot of effort into this stuff.
Exactly.
And in the end, we want to wear you down to win you over.
That's right. Just like an 80s guy in a romantic comedy. But until we're back again, whenever that might be, who can predict it? I've been Josh.
I've been Brian Valentine.
And we'll see you soon. Now I'm going to go eat from a rotten pumpkin some runny oatmeal.
I'm going to try not to toss my pizza.
If you like the show, subscribe, rate, and review us over at Apple Podcasts. We're on Twitter and Instagram at predictocast, and you can find our entire back catalog at predictocast.com. Our theme music is by Kyle Sledge. Find more of his work at soundcloud.com/geistmusic. To get monthly bonus content, sign up at patreon.com/predictocast. As always, thanks for listening.